Hi, I'm Bill, and welcome to the Kitchen Table Mechanic Show. No news today, so I'm just going to run over something that came up at the hobby shop this week again, and it comes up all the time. It's gear mesh and how to set it. And first I'm going to run over the gears themselves. Any vehicle you have a pinion gear, which is on your motor. That's called a pinion gear. And you have a spur gear that's on the vehicle. Even a direct drive pan car, spur gear, pinion gear. So this applies to everything you have. I got the crawler out because don't be confused, because when you look stuff up, or you may have heard, inside of here you have your locker and a crawler. And this is also called your pinion, the gear that rides on the inside. That's also called a pinion gear for rear end. Completely different gear. But people hear that and it gets confusing. So this is the one that goes in the motor, and this is the one that goes in the vehicle. And you have to watch mostly, and I see this all the time, because people buy stuff online and it looks right, and it says it's for the car, it's not even for the vehicle. And the gear pitch, which is how far the teeth are spread apart. So you got big spread apart teeth like that, down to that, very fine. And that's just for gear ratio. The finer, the better the gear ratio you can narrow down. Mostly crawlers, most of the cars I see, I guess, everything's 48 pitch. Red Cat, I believe, uses 0.6, which looks like 48, but it's a different gear. It's a different spread of the teeth, and they almost work. And if you ever buy a gear and you strip your pinion gears off, 100% that is you have a different pitch gear, which is the spread of the teeth, than you're trying to match up to. And I've seen that quite a few times. I see that in RC Junkies all the time. People have a bald pinion gear. What the hell's going on? Because 48 looks almost the same, but they don't mesh right, and it strips all the teeth off of it. So if your gear mesh is too tight, it's going to create heat. It's going to create load on your battery. You got to notice your motor's going to get hot. And the easiest tell on a basher car or a race car is when you let the gas, if it slows down like it's got a brake on, when you don't have it set like that, it runs warm, it just doesn't seem to have the pep. The gear's too tight from the motor to the spur. It's just too tight. That has to have what they call it a lash, and that's a little bit of play. You should be able to take your spur gear if you can get to it, and just wiggle it a little bit, and have it move nice and free without turning the motor. I usually hold around to the motor gear if you can get to it, and I just wiggle the spur gear back and forth. Now, too much will rip the teeth off it if you have too much of a gap. And you'll notice it gets very loud too. If your vehicle's loud, people do this all the time on rustlers and slashes because they come in different gears, and you change the gear, and things loud. Well, that's because your mesh is just a little too loose. And you tighten it up a little bit, and you wouldn't believe I see them on crawlers all the time. They're too tight. They whine. The motors overheat, and it's that simple. It's just your gear's probably too tight to the spur gear. Your pinion gear, spur gear are just too tight. And it makes sense when you look at it. Oh, you want that as far as you can get, so you got all the surface area. That just doesn't work that way. You have to have a little breathing room for it. What else I want to say? Oh, so set your gear mesh. I didn't even know this. When we opened the hobby shop, the guy showed me this. So after you shop at your hobby shop, take a little piece of the receipt paper for it. You actually just sandwich it in there, and you tighten your motor, and then you take you just turn it till the receipt paper comes out, and it's damn close that way on the 48 pitch gears. 32 pitch, you probably use a regular piece of paper because the spread on the 32 pitch is further apart versus the 48's closer together. But like a regular piece of paper with 48 pitch is too much because I've tried it since they told me about it. So the receipt paper trick seems to work pretty good. And one last thing is people want to get metal gears, spur gears. They're always looking for metal spur gears. And if you're stripping gears, you gotta wonder why you're stripping gears. Some gears is made cheap, depends on the model, I guess. but they really shouldn't strip. So you probably have an underlying issue. I know in short course trucks, a lot of them, the two-wheel drives, what will actually happen is this is any vehicle. Your gear is bolted to a shaft that goes inside your rear end, and they call these transmissions and crawlers, and they just ride on bearings. And I say especially the short courses and the buggies and stuff, because they go fast, they spin faster. These won't wear out as much. The bearings will wear, and your gear actually will. You can actually see it on the real bad ones. When it rotates, it goes like that, because the shaft is riding on the bearing. It pushes away, and you'll strip spots, like a section of your spur gear. If you see that, you probably have an underlying issue inside of your rear end transmission, whatever you want to call it. And I've seen that at least 20 times. And sometimes you have to actually buy the whole case. And then the fast vehicles, does it just wear out, actually? Once the bearing, it must be the torque they're under or whatever. You get a little slop in there, so your bearing's good, but what your bearing's sitting in isn't. You know, they're $10 cases, but people get really frustrated and they'll strip gear after gear, and then they go to a metal gear. So I brought up metal gears. The thing with metal gears is, I'll use this because you see it easy. Once this is metal and this is metal, that's no longer going to break. So everything in here is going to break, or could break. And these are genuinely, these are usually more expensive, more of a pain to put in. So unless you have a real reason, you're better off with the plastic ones. And you can get different grades of plastic ones. Like RPM makes arms. Kimbrough's a good one. They're pretty strong. And the way they make them now, they got a bunch of holes in them, and they'll fit almost anything. Even with slippers, you can get slipper adapters on the fast stuff. And that's about it. So check your gear mesh when you're changing something, because it makes a big difference. It really does. And it'll make your battery last longer, make your motor run cooler, it'll make your battery draw less, which is better for your battery. Because you can put the gear mesh tight, you can ruin your motor, your battery in one run. Because you're pulling too much energy to run your motor that overheats, and you're done. I've seen it one time. The guy bought a motor, brand new, and his lipo puffed it. He had a small C lipo, but he should have ran it. And puffed up his battery, puffed up his motor. Motor fried. One run. He went down the road a few times, and that was it. That was in a HPI short course truck. He thought it was a bad motor. It turns out his gear mesh was just. It was like you put a pry bar on it and tightened it. It was just way too tight. But that's all I wanted to go over this week because it came up in the shop again. And just make sure you got a little bit of play. You don't need a ton of play. And you can do it by ear. You can tell by the noise your truck made when it was new, when you got it. If it's acting different when you change your gear, 99% of the time that's your issue. No, that's it. That's all I'm going to go over. So thank you, and we'll see you next week.